Now, I know Australia is supposed to be in lockstep with the Kiwis, but how pally-wally was Anthony Albanese and Jacinda Ardern through last week? It was like as if they were long-lost siblings reuniting after 30 years away from each other. Albo has obviously gone to water over deporting New Zealand-born criminals. Jacinda will get her way there. You can tell that a mile off. We'll keep all those Kiwi-born scumbags from now on, which hardly is in Australia's favour. But back to the love-in, there were any number of selfies taken, dinners shared, we were told, and even swapping of vinyl records. It was a love-in between the two Labor leaders. But what did they share on their mutual fear of climate change and their expensive race to net zero? Well, no doubt they've spoken about New Zealand's latest climate codswallop policy. My word, not hers. And no doubt Albo thought it was a sterling idea. Anything to appease his Green partners in Parliament, of course. You see, although Jacinda didn't mention this in her chatty media appearances, the Washington Post is reporting that the Kiwi government has decided to tax its sheep and other livestock for belching and flatulence, yes, farting. Farmers there will be charged for their livestock emissions in what would be a world first. New Zealand becomes the world leader in a belching tax. A laughing stock comes to mind, pardon the pun. By the way, 95% of the methane emitted from a cow comes from its mouth and nostrils, not from their flatulence. But let's not let the science get in the way of the virtue signalling. In order to achieve their 2050 net zero promise, no matter what the world faces in terms of economic crisis or the inability to keep their lights on, New Zealand has decided, too bad, time to put a price on that smelly methane. Can you believe this stuff? When this is raised in, Glasgow conferences or other climate change platforms, we all laugh and have fun with it. But they have gone where no country, even the Greens in Scandinavia, have gone. And yet New Zealand is not a major emitter. Australia is 14th in the world as an emitter, and that's not a major emitter. 14th in the world. New Zealand is 24th in the world rankings. 24th. Both are meaningless in the CO2 emission space. Meaningless. So you know what this will do, of course? Drive up grocery prices even more. The Kiwis, by the way, are facing the same problems as we are in Australia. The New South Wales Farmers Association described the move as crazy. Now, it's obviously moved very quickly to deride this tax because it obviously fears that Anthony Albanese may swallow the same green Kool-Aid. That wouldn't surprise anyone. And the facts are, agriculture is the only industry that actively removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. I'll talk about that further shortly. But when are we going to see the logic and remove the virtue signalling for the sake of virtue signalling and the climate guilt trip? You've got to look at the facts and see what's going on right in front of us. Any stupid tax on biogenic methane will be passed on to consumers. Just what we don't need right now, further pressures on our cost of living. But the way Ardern and Albanese cuddle up this week, it would not surprise me if the Labor government adopted the same outrageous tax, because there's not one minister in the current government with any true fair income rural experience. They don't understand the bush or the pressures of costs of running what is basically a small business. They don't get it. But if they go down this crazy track, we'll all get it all right, in the hip pocket in spades, for zero influence on the weather. Meanwhile, on the same methane madness, Prince Charles, a lifelong climate scaremonger, has thrown his full support behind an initiative, I can hardly believe this, to put masks on cows. There it is. Are these people on drugs? Designed by a company called Zelp, this mask uses state-of-the-art technology, apparently, to capture the belching and then converts it into carbon dioxide and water. Prince Charles described the mask as fascinating. And this bloke is not far away from running the Commonwealth. Good grief. Please, can the adults take over the room?